There was a time when she didn't even realize she was disappearing. It didn't happen in one day. Nobody suddenly wakes up and decides to lose themselves for someone else. It happens slowly, quietly, in little moments that feel harmless at first. You start adjusting your routine for them. You wait for their messages before sleeping. You ignore your own mood just to protect theirs. You cancel plans, silence your opinions, and slowly make another person the center of your emotional world without even noticing what it is costing you. She used to laugh loudly before she met him. She had dreams that kept her awake at night, goals she talked about with excitement, and a peace inside her that didn't depend on anyone's attention. But once she became emotionally attached, everything changed. Her happiness slowly started depending on how he treated her that day. If he replied fast, her day felt beautiful. If he became cold or distant, her entire mood collapsed. That is the dangerous thing about deep attachment. It teaches your heart to survive on someone else's behavior instead of your own self-worth. At first, she called it love. She thought love meant sacrificing, waiting, understanding endlessly, and always being available. Even when he ignored her for hours, she defended him. Even when he stopped noticing the effort she made, she kept trying harder. Somewhere deep inside, she believed that if she loved him enough, he would eventually love her the same way. But relationships don't always break loudly. Sometimes they break silently while two people are still together. The saddest part was not even his behavior. The saddest part was how much she stopped being herself. Her confidence faded first, then her peace disappeared. Then came the overthinking. Every small change in his tone became a reason for anxiety. Every delayed reply felt personal. She started blaming herself for things that were never her fault. She became emotionally exhausted, trying to hold together a section that only she was carrying. And the painful truth is, many people understand this feeling. When someone becomes too emotionally attached, they slowly abandon themselves. They stop asking, "Am I happy?" and only ask, "How can I make them stay?" That question destroys people from the inside because it teaches them to earn love, instead of simply receiving it. One night, she sat alone staring at old messages, rereading conversations from months ago when everything still felt real. She kept wondering where things changed. Was she too emotional? Too caring? Too available? That's what heartbreak does. It turns loving people into detectives searching for reasons to explain why they were no longer chosen. But the answer was simpler and more painful than she expected. She had spent so much time trying not to lose him that she completely lost herself. The hobbies she once loved no longer mattered. The people who cared about her felt distant because all her emotional energy was invested in one person. Even her own reflection looked tired. She became someone who constantly waited for reassurance, waited for effort, waited for love that used to come naturally, but now felt forced. And one day, something inside her finally broke. Not because he left, not because of one argument, but because she looked at herself honestly, for the first time in months, and realized she was emotionally starving while pretending everything was okay. She realized love should never cost someone their identity. Caring deeply for someone should not mean abandoning yourself in the process. That realization hurt more than the breakup itself. Healing did not happen quickly. She still missed him. She still checked her phone hoping his name would appear. Attachment does not disappear overnight, just because someone hurts you. Sometimes your heart stays loyal to memories even after reality changes. But little by little, she started returning to herself. She started spending time alone without feeling empty. She reconnected with old dreams she had ignored. She stopped chasing explanations and started protecting her peace instead. For the first time in a long time, she understood that being alone was less painful than constantly feeling unwanted. And that changed her. Because real self-growth begins when a person finally understands that love is not supposed to make you smaller. Real love does not force you to sacrifice your confidence, your mental peace, or your identity just to keep someone close. The right person will never require you to abandon yourself to be loved. Some people enter your life to teach you romance. Others enter your life to teach you self-respect. And sometimes the most painful attachment becomes the very thing that saves you, because losing them finally helps you find yourself again. The moment you stop begging for love and start valuing your own heart, you become someone no heartbreak can completely destroy again. After the breakup, someone around her thought she was only struggling to move on from him. That's what heartbreak looks like from the outside. People assume you miss the person, the relationship, the memories together. But what nobody understands is that sometimes the pain is much deeper and much more confusing than that. Sometimes you are not crying because you lost a person. You are crying because you lost the feeling they gave you when life felt less lonely. For weeks, she convinced herself that she could not live without him. Every morning started with heaviness in her chest. Every night ended with memories she could not escape. She kept checking old chats, replaying voice notes, staring at pictures for hours, as if somehow the past would answer her questions. She missed him when she ate dinner alone. She missed him during long drives. She missed him during random moments nobody else would understand. But slowly, something strange started happening. Whenever she thought deeply about him, she realized she wasn't always remembering who he truly was. Instead, she remembered the feeling of comfort, the feeling of always having someone to text at midnight, the feeling of hearing "Did you reach home safely?" The feeling of waking up to notifications that made ordinary mornings feel special. It wasn't necessarily him she missed every second. It was the emotional routine her heart had become addicted to. And that realization confused her, because heartbreak becomes harder when attachment mixes love with emotional dependency. You start believing the person and the feeling are the same thing, but they are not always connected. She remembered how, near the end of the relationship, things had already changed between them. The warmth slowly disappeared, conversations became dry, effort became inconsistent. There were moments when she cried quietly after talking to him because his distance hurt more than silence itself. Yet even after all that pain, she still missed him desperately after he left. Why? Because the human heart becomes attached, not only to people, but to patterns. Familiarity becomes emotional comfort, even when it hurts us. She missed having someone to tell about her day. She missed hearing another voice during lonely nights. She missed feeling chosen by someone. Even the arguments became part of the emotional attachment, because at least they were proof that someone was still there. That is the dangerous part of emotional dependency. It can make loneliness feel scarier than unhappiness. One rainy evening, she sat by the window holding her phone, reading old conversations again. There was one message where he said, "I'll always be here for you." She stared at those words for a long time, tears filling her eyes. But then she realized something painful: the version of him she missed no longer existed. Maybe it had disappeared months ago without her accepting it. Sometimes people stay emotionally attached to memories, while reality has already changed completely. That thought broke her heart in a different way. She started remembering things honestly, instead of romantically. She remembered how anxious she became waiting for replies, how she constantly overthought small changes in his behavior, how she often felt emotionally alone, even while still being in the relationship. For so long, her mind had only focused on the beautiful moments, because pain has a strange habit of editing memories after heartbreak. And then came the biggest realization of all. She did not actually miss feeling ignored, confused, or emotionally drained. She missed feeling emotionally connected to someone. She missed companionship. She missed comfort. She missed the routine of love itself. That realization became the beginning of her healing, because once she understood the difference between loving a person and depending on a feeling, she slowly stopped romanticizing the relationship. She stopped treating loneliness like proof that she belonged with him. Eddie. She began learning how to sit alone with herself without feeling empty. At first, it was difficult. The silence after attachment feels unbearable because you are suddenly forced to face yourself again. No constant notifications, no emotional distractions, no one validating your existence every day. Just you, your thoughts, and the uncomfortable truth that you abandoned yourself while trying to hold on to someone else. But little by little, she started rebuilding her own emotional world. She started enjoying small moments again, without needing to share them immediately with someone. She spent time with people who genuinely cared about her. She returned to hobbies she ignored during the relationship. She learned that peace feels very different from temporary emotional excitement. Most importantly, she discovered that being emotionally connected to yourself is far more stable than depending entirely on another person to make life feel meaningful. One day, months later, she heard his name in a random conversation. For a moment, her heart paused the way it always used to. But then, something surprising happened. The sadness was no longer heavy. She smiled softly. Not because she still wanted him back, but because she finally understood the lesson he unknowingly taught her. Some people are not meant to stay forever. They arrive in your life to reveal the emptiness you were trying to escape through attachment. And when they leave, they force you to build a relationship with yourself that is stronger than loneliness. That is why healing truly begins the moment you stop asking, "Why do I miss them?" and start asking, what feeling was I trying to replace through them? Because sometimes the person you are desperately crying over was never your home. They were only a temporary escape from the emptiness you needed to heal within yourself. She used to defend him in front of everyone. No matter what he did, she always found a way to explain it, soften it, or forgive. Her friends noticed the changes before she did. They noticed how her smile became tired, how she constantly looked anxious checking her phone, how she went silent in conversations whenever his name came up. But whenever someone tried to warn her, she immediately responded with the same sentence. You don't understand him like I do. That's the thing about deep emotional attachment. It doesn't just connect your heart to someone. Sometimes it blinds your eyes too. In the beginning, he was charming in the way emotionally confusing people often are. He knew how to make her feel special when he wanted to. One moment he was deeply caring, affectionate, and emotionally available. The next moment he became distant, cold, impossible to understand. But instead of seeing inconsistency as a warning sign, she saw it as something she needed to fix. She thought love meant patience, so every time he disappeared emotionally, she waited. Every time he gave mixed signals, she searched for hidden meaning in them. When he cancelled plans, she told herself he was stressed. When he ignored her messages for hours but stayed active online, she blamed herself for overthinking. Slowly, she became emotionally trained to accept confusion as a normal part of love, and that's how attachment quietly changes people. It teaches them to tolerate things they once promised themselves they never would. There was a night she sat crying while staring at their old pictures together. Just hours earlier, he had spoken to her so coldly that she barely recognized the person she loved. He made her feel like her emotions were a burden, but instead of becoming angry, she immediately started wondering what she did wrong. Maybe she asked for too much attention, maybe she was too emotional, maybe she expected too much reassurance. People who become deeply attached often start shrinking themselves just to avoid losing someone. What she didn't realize was that real love never makes someone feel guilty for needing basic emotional care. But attachment is powerful. It can make breadcrumbs feel like a full meal. A single sweet message after days of distance suddenly becomes enough to erase all the pain. One moment of affection can make a person forget weeks of emotional neglect. That emotional cycle keeps people trapped because they become addicted to temporary closeness after long periods of confusion. And slowly, she stopped trusting her own instincts. There were moments when her heart clearly felt something was wrong. Moments when silence hurt more than words. Moments when she sensed she was giving far more love than she was receiving. But every time reality tried to wake her up, attachment pulled her back into hope. Hope is beautiful in healthy love, but in painful attachment, hope becomes dangerous. She kept waiting for him to return to the version of himself she met in the beginning. She kept believing the inconsistency was temporary. She focused so much on his potential that she ignored his actual behavior. That's why red flags become invisible when emotions grow too deep. People stop seeing who someone truly is and start loving the version they created in their imagination. One evening, she finally broke down completely. He had once again ignored her the entire day after promising he would call. Hours passed while she sat staring at her phone feeling stupid for caring so much. Her chest felt heavy, but what hurt her most was not his silence. It was the realization that she had started accepting emotional pain as something normal. She looked at herself honestly for the first time in months. Why was she constantly anxious in a relationship that was supposed to feel safe? Why did she feel relieved over basic effort that should have been natural? Why was she always scared of losing someone who barely seemed afraid of losing her? Those questions changed everything, because deep down, she already knew the answers. She had known for a long time, but attack delayed the truth. It made her confuse emotional chaos with passion. It made her believe suffering was proof of loyalty. It made her think staying through pain automatically meant the love was real. But real love does not leave someone emotionally starving while calling it commitment. That night, she stopped rereading old memories and started looking at the relationship honestly. She remembered all the times she cried quietly after conversations with him, all the moments she felt emotionally abandoned while still technically being together, all the times her intuition warned her that she deserved better, but attachment convinced her to stay, and suddenly, the truth became impossible to ignore. She was not difficult to love. She was simply trying to receive genuine affection from someone emotionally incapable of giving it consistently. That realization hurt her deeply, but it also freed her. For the first time, she understood that love should never require someone to constantly betray themselves. Relationships are not supposed to feel like emotional survival. You should not have to decode mixed signals, beg for reassurance, or question your worth every single day just to feel connected to someone. Healing wasn't immediate. She still missed him sometimes. Attachment doesn't disappear just because truth appears. But every day she spent away from emotional confusion brought her closer to herself again. Her mind became quieter. Her anxiety slowly faded. She stopped feeling desperate for crumbs of affection because she finally understood how little she had actually been receiving. And the biggest lesson she carried from that heartbreak was simple but life-changing. When someone truly loves you, their presence brings clarity, not confusion, peace, not constant anxiety, security, not emotional guessing games. Because the saddest thing about attachment is not losing someone else, it's losing your ability to recognize when you deserve better. He never thought, or he would become the kind of person who begged someone to stay. Before her, he used to judge people who lost themselves in love. He would hear stories about heartbreak and wonder how someone could ignore their self-respect just because another person stopped loving them properly. But love has a strange way of humbling people. It slowly takes emotionally strong individuals and places them in situations where they no longer recognize themselves. In the beginning, their relationship felt effortless. Conversations flowed naturally, laughter came easily, and for the first time in years, he felt emotionally safe with someone. She became part of his routine so quietly that he didn't even notice how deeply attached he had become until the thought of losing her started terrifying him. That fear changed everything. The moment someone becomes afraid of losing love, they start tolerating things they normally never would. Small disrespect gets ignored, emotional distance gets excused, effort becomes one-sided, but the attached person keeps fighting harder because their heart believes love can still be saved. That's exactly what happened to him. At first, he noticed tiny changes. Her replies became slower, her excitement faded, the affection that once came naturally now felt forced. But instead of stepping back and protecting his peace, he became desperate to fix whatever was breaking between them. He blamed stress, life problems, bad timing, anything except the painful truth standing right in front of him. She was slowly emotionally leaving while he was still emotionally holding on. There were nights he stared at his phone for hours, typing messages and deleting them again, because he didn't want to seem too needy. But heartbreak turns people into versions of themselves they once promised they would never become. Eventually, he stopped caring about pride. He only cared about not losing her. So he chased harder. He apologized for things he didn't even do wrong just to stop arguments. He accepted cold behavior because he feared silence more than disrespect. Whenever she became distant, he became softer. Whenever she pulled away, he moved closer emotionally. He thought loyalty meant never giving up on someone you love. But there's a dangerous line between fighting for love and abandoning yourself for it. One night, after hours of being ignored, he finally sent a long emotional message telling her how much he loved her, how badly he wanted things to work, how he was willing to do anything to keep the relationship alive. He stared at the screen waiting for a reply, his heart racing with hope and fear at the same time. When her response finally came, it was short, cold, and emotionally empty. In that moment, something inside him shattered, not because she didn't love him the same way anymore, but because he suddenly realized how small he had made himself just to remain in someone's life. He was offering loyalty, patience, emotional honesty, and genuine care to someone who barely valued it anymore. And the worst part was that he knew it, yet still kept trying. That realization followed him for days. He looked back at the relationship honestly for the first time. He remembered every moment he ignored his own pain just to avoid losing her. Every time he stayed silent about something that hurt him because he feared pushing her away. Every moment he accepted less than he deserved because attachment convinced him that losing her would hurt more than losing himself. But he was wrong. Losing yourself is always the greater tragedy, because when someone constantly begs for love, they slowly destroy their own confidence. They stop believing they are naturally worthy of care and start feeling like they must earn affection through sacrifice. They become emotionally exhausted, trying to prove their value to people who should have recognized it freely. Weeks after the breakup, he still missed her terribly. Attachment doesn't disappear just because the relationship ends. Some nights he almost texted her again just to feel close one more time. That's the painful thing about emotional dependency. Even when someone hurts you, part of your heart still craves their presence. But slowly, distance started teaching him what love never did. He realized that genuine love does not require begging. Real connection does not leave someone constantly anxious about being abandoned. A person who truly values you will never make you feel like your love is an inconvenience. For months, he had confused emotional struggle with emotional depth. He thought suffering proved how real his feelings were. But mature love is not built on chasing someone who keeps walking away. It is built on mutual care, mutual effort, and emotional safety. One evening, he sat alone thinking about the version of himself before the relationship, the confident person who once knew his worth without needing anyone else to confirm it. He realized heartbreak had not only taken away a relationship, it had forced him to confront the emptiness inside himself that became too dependent on external love. That realization became the beginning of his healing. Little by little, he stopped romanticizing the pain. He stopped replaying old memories searching for signs that she secretly still cared. Instead, he started rebuilding the relationship he had neglected the most, the one with himself. He slept peacefully again. He laughed naturally again. He stopped checking his phone hoping for validation from someone who had already emotionally let go. And for the first time in a very long time, he understood that self-respect and love should never stand opposite each other. Because no matter how deeply you love someone, the moment you start begging for the bare minimum, you are no longer fighting for love, you are fighting against your own worth. And the strongest thing a heart can learn is this: never beg someone to choose you when your soul is already there. Die begging you to choose yourself instead.